In this video, we will discuss an alternative to the VLOOKUP function in the form of a combination of two functions, index and match. We'll talk about the advantages of this solution, examine how each function works separately, and explore how to use the combination of these functions instead of VLOOKUP. The previous video was dedicated to the VLOOKUP function, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's worth watching to better understand the advantages of the solution presented in this video. So, let's get started. The combination of index and match functions effectively replaces the VLOOKUP function and eliminates its drawbacks that stem from its syntax. Let me remind you that the VLOOKUP function returns a value from a range that can only be to the right of the column where the lookup is performed. Index and match can search in any column of the range. Additionally, with VLOOKUP, a non-contiguous range is specified, including all columns between the column where the lookup occurs and the column from which the value needs to be returned. However, when working with data, you may need to delete or insert a column within the previously selected range. As a result, you will have to make changes to the formula and adjust the range. In the index and match formula, specific columns are indicated, so deleting or adding columns has no impact on their operation. Now, to understand how the combination of the index and match functions works, let's examine the syntax of each function separately. The index function returns the value located at a specified row number in the selected range. For example, let's find the name Rachel in the corresponding column. The first thing we specify is where the search will take place. We will only be interested in one column, so we select it. Next, we must indicate the row number within the selected range from which the value will be returned. This parallels VLOOKUP. The row number is specified in the selected range, not the row number in the Excel table. In my example, it is the third row. The arguments in square brackets are optional, so they can be omitted. The name Rachel will be returned. If a range consisting of several columns is selected, we will need to specify the row number and column number in the range where cell with the lookup value is located. For example, if we select a range with all the data and we need Rachel's address, we would specify that it is in the third row and the second column of the selected range. The index function returns the lookup value, but unlike VLOOKUP, the coordinates of the cell have to be specified manually. To automate the process, we will use the match function. The match function searches for a specified value in a range of cells and returns the relative position of the cell containing the lookup value. In other words, this function essentially returns the coordinates of that cell, which is exactly what the index function lacks for a complete replacement of the VLOOKUP function. For instance, we need to know the coordinates of name Rachel within the range. We'll create a formula using the match function and enter the name we are interested in. Just a reminder, the text is entered in quotation marks. We specified what to search for, and now we need to indicate where the search will be performed. We select the values from the name column. The last argument of the match function closely resembles the similar argument for approximate match in the VLOOKUP function, but it can take three values: less than, greater than, and exact match. When it comes to searching for text data, we always choose exact match. The other parameters are relevant only when working with numeric data. Therefore, we specify 0, and ultimately, we obtain the number 3, corresponding to the third row in the selected range. Now, let's combine the index and match functions to create a complete replacement for the VLOOKUP function. Let's find Michael's phone number. We will create a formula using the index function. Since we need the phone number, we will search for it in the corresponding column of the table, so we select that column. Next, we need to specify the row number within this range, and this is where the match function comes to assist us. Since we are interested in Michael's phone number, we want to obtain the row number where his name is located. We specify what we are looking for, the name Michael, and then we indicate where we will perform the search, the corresponding range from the name column. Since we are searching for text, we will select an exact match. We get the correct result. The formula has performed exactly the same function that the VLOOKUP can easily handle. However, let's address tasks that VLOOKUP cannot manage. An undeniable advantage of index and match formula over VLOOKUP is that we can perform lookup operations to the left. In addition, we can specify only the ranges of interest in the function arguments. This means that the final formula will not be sensitive to inserting new columns or deleting columns that are no longer needed. Let's illustrate this with an example, but first, let's practice a bit and substitute the price from the price list using the combination of index and match functions. We create a formula using the index function and select the range with prices. Then we connect the match function and specify the product name as the lookup value. After that, we indicate the corresponding range in the price list. The same rule applies here as when working with the VLOOKUP function. if we plan to copy a formula, we have to fix the references, turning them into absolute references. Otherwise, when copying the formula, the range in it will shift, and the function will return an error. We sequentially select the ranges, and press F4 to convert the references into absolute ones. Now the formula works correctly, and we can calculate the total order amount. We essentially obtained the same result as with the VLOOKUP function. Now, let's substitute the city based on the manager's name. In the table, the column with managers is located to the right of the column with cities, and therefore the VLOOKUP function is useless here. We create a formula using the index function, and specify the column with cities, as that is the information we are ultimately interested in. Don't forget to fix the range. Then, using the match function, we find the corresponding row number. We can do this by looking up the manager's name, which is found in both tables. We obtain the desired result. Moreover, if a column needs to be added to the table later, the data will remain unchanged because it will be linked to specific columns in the table. This can be clearly observed in the following example. Here we have a menu, and two identical orders. One is calculated using VLOOKUP, and the other is calculated using index and match. If the menu changes, and an additional column is added, the calculations with the VLOOKUP function will be incorrect, because now it will include not the price, but the description. The range in the formula has expanded, but the column number in the argument still points to the third column in the range, even though it has now become the fourth. However, in the second table, everything is calculated correctly, and the insertion of columns did not affect the final result. One more advantage of the combination of functions is that we can search not only in columns but also in rows. For example, a standard situation for menu is that drinks have various sizes, which affects their price. The input data consists of the drink and its size. We need to find the price. To do this, we will use the index function and specify the entire price range. To determine the coordinates of a specific cell, we will use the match function. Moreover, we will utilize it twice, first to find the necessary row by the name of the drink, and second to find the needed column by its size. As a result, we obtain the correct answer. We can verify the accuracy of the calculation by substituting another drink and its size. Everything works correctly. The index and match functions make searching for data as flexible as possible, and allow for solving problems that the VLOOKUP function cannot address. However, this solution also has its nuances that need to be considered to avoid running into issues. Perhaps the most common mistake, as with VLOOKUP, is the use of relative references in ranges. As I mentioned earlier, there is a simple rule here: if the formula is to be copied, it is essential to fix the references. The second error you may encounter is the ref error. This issue arises when the arrays in the index and match functions have different sizes. If the lookup value from one range exceeds the boundaries of the other, this error appears. It is crucial to check the corresponding ranges and adjust their sizes accordingly. It is easy to monitor the sizes of the ranges when you are working with small tables. But when dealing with a large amount of data, keyboard shortcuts are typically used for selection. For example, to select all cells with data in a column, you can use the keyboard combination, Ctrl-Shift-Down arrow. However, if there is an empty cell in the range, the selection will stop on it, and all other data will not be included in the range, which will cause an error. Another common problem to all lookup formulas is performance decrease when processing large data sets. Undoubtedly, this is influenced by dozens of factors. However, to expedite calculations, I recommend using Excel tables, also known as structured references. This is not always possible, but in situations where data can be formatted as Excel tables, always use them. Excel tables are a very powerful tool that can significantly speed up routine operations and enhance your productivity. I will discuss Excel tables in more detail in the next video. Please rate this video if you find it useful, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.